Hi, I'm Terry, one of the Consumer Technology Specialists for Mid-Continent Public Library, and today we are going to start a new video series called Excel Basics. And with this first video, we're going to just simply look at an overview of what happens when you open Excel for the very first time and see all of the possibilities in that very first view in your very first workbook. Let's start by going to the Start menu button. We'll click on Start. And then while we could find Excel in this alphabetical list, I'm going to go to one of my tiles and click on Excel. And it'll take just a minute here for Excel to open. Now from here, I can maximize my window so that it fills the whole screen. When you first open Excel, you're going to see right off that you have all of these little boxes that are made up into a grid of some kind. And it's a little overwhelming to think, how can I fill all of this? Well, you probably can't fill it all, but it certainly gives you a really nice workspace to work with numbers and charts and whatever else you would like to do with Excel. To get started, let's look over to the left where we can see a bunch of numbers, and those numbers are the names of rows. So if we want to look at a row, we can see that it goes all the way across to the far right. Now we also have columns, and columns are a vertical arrangement of those little boxes, and they have letters as their names, as you can see running across the top here. So if we look, yes, that is one column. Now to find out how many rows we have, because this is just quite amazing, there are over 1,000,000 rows. And if we go out to the far right, we can see that they go clear to XFD. So with the columns, they start with A to Z, and then they go through double A to double Z, and then it starts with triple A and winds up at XFD, which is over 1,000 by quite a ways. But you have a lot of little boxes here to do whatever you need to do to work with your information. Now the intersection of that column and row is called a cell. So here I am at cell A1, and it even has a little border around it, a cell selector that shows up maybe clearly here, where now I've clicked in C3. And you can even see that there's a slightly darker background to the column letter and the row number. Now, as you work with a large spreadsheet, it's easy, I think, to get off and not quite be able to line up where you are, especially with the rows. So there is this wonderful little tool above column A right now that is called the name box. And when you look at it, it shows you where you are. So no matter where you click, you can always look at the name box to remind it what the name of that cell really is. Now that we have a better feel for what these little boxes or cells are and how they might help us, let's go down to the lower left where we can see something that says Sheet 1. This is a worksheet tab, and it is simply the first of what could be many worksheets. Now, worksheets, while they act independently of each other, can be related. So, for example, I could have a collection of worksheets where each one is simply a different month, and maybe I have a payroll for each one of those months. Or perhaps I do a house inventory, and each sheet represents a different room in the house. So it is simply an organizing tool, and sheets can be a big help. Now, if you go back to your elementary days and think about how maybe you had a reading workbook, well, you had that workbook, and then inside the workbook you had worksheets. And Excel is organized the same way. So here we have a worksheet, or possibly many others as well. And then if we go up to the title bar, you can see that the temporary name of this file is book. And so we could save the name of the file as something different than workbook, but we always know that when we talk about Excel and the file is the workbook, and then inside of the workbook we have worksheets, and then each worksheet is divided into many cells. Now that we feel familiar with rows, columns, cells, worksheets, and workbooks, let's go above this grid of cells and look at the horizontal bar that goes across. And as you look at it, you can see that it has a lot of little pictures or icons, and really those are buttons. Now, each button has a specific job in how it will affect the information that you've put in your cells, in your spreadsheets, in your charts, in your tables. And so as we look at this, we can see that there are a whole lot here, but that is just, as we go above the ribbon, that is just the Home tab. It's the most likely tab you will use, but that's just one tab. Now as we look, we can go to the Insert tab, the Page Layout tab, Formulas, Data, Review, View, even Help. And all of these have buttons that relate to those specific tabs. Now let me go back to Home, because the tabs by themselves don't really help us get organized or find things easily. So each tab also is split into different groups of related buttons. So here, for example, in the Home tab, we also have a font group where each one of those buttons in some way affect how the font looks. Below the ribbon, we have what is called the formula bar, and right now it just looks like a blank bar going across to the right, but it has two different jobs. So if I click in a cell and I type something, and then I go back to that cell, I can see that what is in the cell is also reflected in the formula bar. Now the formula bar has a second job, which is even more important. So let me go to another cell and very quickly type in a formula. That won't be all that exciting because we don't have any data, but let me type in that formula, and you can see that the answer is 0, and that is in that cell. But if I go to the formula bar, it shows me how I got that answer, and that is extremely helpful when you have a formula and you want to know how that answer was created. For more information, be sure to go to mymcpl.org/online learning. There you'll see such great online resources as Universal Class, lynda.com, Who Knew It, and Learning Express Library. We are now showing 3 new videos each week. You can find them at Facebook as they premiere on MCPL 360, Tuesday at 2 o'clock, and then Wednesday and Friday at 1 o'clock. If you miss our Facebook premiere or just simply prefer YouTube, be sure to subscribe to our MCPL MO channel, where you could also find our MCPL Consumer Technology